Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle Desrochers and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 from the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM from New Orleans. We are fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee, who have been a part of our journey since day one. So thank you, Folgers. We couldn't do it without you, nor would we want to. Also, thank you to Justin Snicker, a.k.a. Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, for his contribution of his time, his music, and his voice for the intro that you just heard. He's an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music, which can be found on all of your favorite music platforms. Also, thank you to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind the banners and logos here at the show. Check him out on Facebook and Instagram. Also specializes in the horror theme and does phenomenal commission pieces of any sort. So tonight we welcome back Jack Roth. And Jack is going to be, he's doing a bit of a switcheroo on us. And I think it may be because he may be considering a future project, but he's going to be discussing his thoughts on the DaVinci Code and I guess the Bloodline of Jesus. He's going to be exploring this and talking about it. So it's going to be a little bit of a parlay happening. So hopefully you guys can get right into it. And again, just, I mean, this is a pretty hypothetical thing. This is something that's been, really gone crazy since the movie many years ago. And there's a lot of thoughts on it. Doesn't mean we agree with them all. Doesn't mean we don't agree with some of them. We really don't know. But I think it's just one of those mysteries that, or perceptions, theories, whatever the case may be, that people really seem to be drawn into. So we're going to wait for Jack to come in. Hello, Janie. First one in tonight. Look at
Hello.
You. Hello.
Sorry, I'm in white mode here. I have a child.
I know. Amelia's just not on camera tonight. And so I am looking forward to the show tonight because
me too.
It is a favorite topic of conversation.
Yes, especially between us. But
especially when it's one of those mystery things. And I think it brings people together and it separates people at the same time. It's like one of those things. Don't talk about religion and politics.
Politics,
all right.
I
know.
And you can be voting for the same party and you could still split. With this, I think it brought us together, but we won't go into why because this is about our guests. But I actually watched this show. Yes, watched the movie yesterday because I needed that. I don't know, I needed that Hollywood side of it for a second because I know about the historical part and I needed that Hollywood side. And when you watch it, you realize just how much of that is so damn accurate, if I might say.
Some of it is.
Yeah. And not all of it because it is a film.
I think, when you go to these locations, I've been so privileged to have been able to go and walk, the footsteps of the Essenes and go to some of these incredible places. I'll tell you, it does have a really good feel to it. But let's not get too far into it because our guest is here and I just want to include him in on the journey. So without further ado, Jack Roth, hey.
Hi, Jack. Sorry you can't see me. I've got a massive migraine coming, but I didn't want to miss the show because I didn't want you to take it personally because I wasn't here last time.
Yeah, the last couple of times you were like,
what the hell? I'm having a problem with migraines this year. It's really bad.
Oh.
But anyways, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for asking. And I'm glad at least you're here. So that's good.
Yeah. As long as I don't have the lights right now, I'm okay.
You're sitting in the dark.
I'm sitting in the dark with just a tiny little light so that the light from the computer doesn't kill me and my eyes are like half closed. But I couldn't miss this, and I couldn't miss you. And I was just saying that I actually watched the DaVinci Code movie yesterday because just for fun, you know.
That triggered me. It was like when I watched JFK.
Yeah.
I was triggered to do more research into the assassination, wound up writing a book about it.
And
the DaVinci Code did the same thing for John and I. We're like, okay, it resonated. There was a lot. It was almost like the same thing. Like it threw a lot out there and left it to the audience to say, ooh, what do I want to go research regarding this?
You should have invited him on.
Yeah, no, you know what? I could probably, all I have to do is text him. I didn't know whether you wanted him to, I don't know.
He's always welcome. You guys are for sure. No problem. You have the link.
Oh, I do have the link. So
you do. So for course.
So what I can do is go ahead. We'll continue to talk. I'm just going to forward it to him. We'll see what he does.
Okay.
Yeah, I think with the DaVinci Code, it set people on a path where I don't think anything like it has actually been done to the degree that it was done. Because if you think about it, think about it. It's so controversial. You would never have been able to get away with, even proposing something like that in the past. There's just no way.
But yeah. I know. I have a different view of it than most people do. Michelle knows my view because it's similar. I remember my mom saying to me a long time ago, even though she was a devout Catholic, she always believed that priests should be married and have families. She said, it's just ridiculous. It's not what it was like. She would say that to me. She goes, nowhere in the Bible does it say that they weren't married or that anyone of the apostles were not married or families. We don't know what really happened because we don't have all of that scripture at our fingertips. We have the scripture that was given to us. But I remember her saying that, and it just really, excuse me, sorry, intrigued me.
You all right?
Yeah, I'm just,
Want me to jump in?
Sure.
That's not where you're going. So
I'm okay. No.
I think there's a lot of stuff that you could really dig pretty deep in with that. But I think you have to go really far back as well. And you don't, there's not a lot of people that do, you know what I'm saying? Like you have to go back to Jesus Christ. You have to go back to the time of the Gnostics and the Essenes. And there's a lot of that stuff that seems to be, it contradicts even things that we know about the resurrections. Like, no, this really happened. And then if you start reading, like it's scattered all over the place. You need to, John or Jack and I have talked about this before, where we've tried to, you have to piece it all together. And you end up going back to the Essenes and the Cathars who knew the art of resurrection.
Yeah.
Literally how to die and kind of die and come back in 3 days. Like, you see, like there's a lot of information that has been taken from so many different places.
Yeah.
And something was created.
And there's that argument of, did he die? Or was crucifixion a punishment? So that's a big thing there as well. I think what you're saying about the investigating, it's a lot like a crime scene. You really do have to go back and put it on a huge wall like the FBI does and sort it. And Michelle's perfect for that because she knows everything about the history of all of those.
It is a huge wall, like a wall that doesn't fit in one room. Like it's and that's what the last discussion we had with Michelle, it was not on air, but John and I, because we're trying to develop a couple of documentaries, TV shows, some kind of a project around this, which is why I appreciate you having me come on to talk about this topic, because it's something I'm just learning about as I'm doing research on it. Michelle, you're like the you know more about this than anyone I've ever met.
She does.
Thank you. Believe me.
She's been to Roslyn Chapel.
I've been to pretty much all of these places, but I'm a student. I learn because I have, I have an interest, enough of an interest that I'm just like, okay, I need to buy this book. And I seek out, guests who could come on and teach us as well. And I'm like a sponge. I retain it. But we all have to remember that this is something that essentially is largely in theory right now. Like, we're chasing this, we're exploring all of this. And it just seems to be, the further you delve, the more you find. And then it's like, how do you piece it together? I have found so much stuff that if I put out some of the stuff I found, people will go, okay, that's it. We can't do this.
Well, our heads were spinning after that call we had with you, because we didn't know we were like, there's so much here. That it's like you didn't even know where to begin, right? It's like, what is this all? What is the message here? What is the point of all of this? And I thought about this a little bit before coming on, because to me, when you think about the Knights Templar and you think about Prior Sion and you think about Jesus and Mary Magdalene, the possibility of a royal bloodline, to me, it's about, okay, what do we know? We know that the Christian church and the Catholic Church took Jesus, died on the cross. Whether he died on the cross or not, I wasn't there. You guys weren't there.
Right. Well, I might have been.
So like, you can't provide tangible evidence for that.
Right.
But I do feel like I was there.
Well, here's the thing. So if you take Jesus dying on the cross and you take Jesus's ministry as an actual thing, that he existed, he taught these teachings, then you have to ask yourself, well, where did he learn these things? Who was he that he learned these things? And that's what starts taking you back. Before going forward, you have to go back, right? So did he go to the mystery schools? Was he initiated in the ancient mystery schools, in particular the Egyptian ancient mystery schools? And then you can add John the Baptist in on that as well. But what are we talking about here? Big picture wise, what we're talking about is this ancient knowledge that existed on this planet in early civilizations up to 5,000 years ago, and then way beyond if we take it back to Atlantis and these ancient civilizations that may or may not have existed, but, and then we take it from there. We take Toph from Atlantis, who goes to Egypt and becomes a high priest there and a very important person. And he has the emerald tablets and he starts teaching these teachings. And what is it? What is the ancient knowledge? The ancient knowledge is, like we talked about, right? So it's alchemy, right?
Alchemy is the big one.
Yeah.
All these things that they knew back then, that it was known, people knew that stuff, and they knew how to, not everyone, but there were certainly people who you could call alchemists, and you can call, we call necromancers, magic with a K instead of a C. So this was what it was all about. Right. So some of the things that Jesus apparently did seem like magic, but they were part of this initiation where he learned these things. So then you say, okay, so, and Amelia, like you said, back then, if you were a young Jewish guy, you got married and had kids.
Yeah.
So now you go to the Mary Magdalene thing. And now it's like, okay, whether, she could have been with John the Baptist first. John the Baptist gets beheaded. She's with Jesus.
That's the story.
She has kids. She could have had kids with John the Baptist. I don't know enough about that, but I think most likely had kids with Jesus. So now let's fast forward. That all happens, but what happens? That knowledge, once the church gets power, they hoard that knowledge, right? Or they want to control.
No, they changed the story.
So they change the story. Yeah. They change the narrative. That knowledge slowly but surely goes away. It disappears. Not many people know about it at all.
No,
right?
and you have to specify, because people, not to confuse people, but why would she go, okay, with John the Baptist over to Jesus? Well, they were cousins. So you step in to, and he would have cared for her. But, it's like we talked about this too. And Mark Ollie was on a few weeks ago, and he said, no, it wouldn't have been like that, because she wouldn't have been old enough to even meet them at one point. And that he stepped in, Jesus would have stepped in after Joseph died as an equal to his mother, right? To step in as the son, and had no real like flesh and blood brothers. And so there's a lot of stuff in there that left my head spinning, going, it goes against everything we've ever been taught, all of it.
But he did have siblings, no? Because it's in the books. I'm just curious. They speak about brothers, but never brothers, sisters.
Maybe? Adopted brothers. No.
Females aren't really in the Bible, unless
once the Bible, that's it. The New Testament is all propaganda.
I wouldn't read that. Yeah.
So because that was a control, they wanted to put in it what they thought they wanted in it. They decided whether Jesus was a man or more than a man. And they're the ones who decided that he's got to be more than a man, right? Mm-hmm. So he's got to be divine. And the only way to get to Jesus is through us, the church, and our priests. So it was all designed for control.
It's kind of like mainstream media right now. But
nothing's changed. It's human nature doesn't change. It's the same. We're as horrible as we've ever been. So you have to take all of these manipulations into account.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then here's where it gets interesting. So then fast forward 1,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The Crusades. You have the Knights Templar. They take Jerusalem, right? They're able, by taking Jerusalem, they go to the Temple Mount, the ancient Temple of Solomon. And correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle. Mm-hmm. And what do they find there? What do they find there? It's a big secret, right? Like they found a lot there. And not only did it make them rich overnight, it also made them very powerful overnight, because I think they found part of that knowledge of what really happened.
Mm-hmm.
So did they find the Holy Grail? Did they find several arcs of the covenant, like all this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. What did they find there? They took it for themselves, and all of a sudden they started buying up all this land. They became very powerful, became a threat to the Catholic Church, to the Roman Catholic Church and the Pope. Well, who else was a threat? The Cathars, the Cathar Crusade. And this is all the history behind this, is that it was all about the church controlling the situation, controlling the narrative, controlling whatever that important knowledge was. What did they not want people to know? Mm-hmm. Well, they didn't want people to know that they manipulated the New Testament. That's not really what happened. That Jesus was a man. He was with Mary Magdalene. He had kids. It was a royal bloodline. It eventually became the Merovingian kings, and et cetera, et cetera. That's why so much of this is in France, because France is ground zero for a lot of this. Once Jesus died on the cross, it's all happening in France. A lot's happening in France.
This is what they say, I don't know. I find that, again, there's so much, because you have the tale of the three Marys who come to the south of France. So then you start wondering which Mary, which Mary is Mary. Like, do you see where it gets so confusing? I mean, I think that this is something that is wonderful. People have come together and thought, oh my gosh, this is like, it's like a mystery, But if you think about that too, the Templars, the keepers of knowledge, and rich men, like we've talked about this, rich men don't give up their wealth to go treasure hunting. There has to be something greater. So to give up everything, I mean everything, some men even gave up their titles, their wealth, their lands. What would make you give up something like that?
Right. The ultimate truth.
Right.
And what is the ultimate truth? Is it connection to source, connection to God?
Mm-hmm.
What was Jesus's power or God's power on earth? What was that? And did the Egyptians know? But now we don't know because everything's been, can we find that knowledge again? You have modern mystery schools and they teach a lot of that, right? The power of ritual, and you can get books on alchemy. I don't know if it's everything that's in there that you can actually create another philosopher's stone, but you can get books on alchemy. You can get books on sacred geometry.
There's a lot of ancient bookstores that you can find on social media that will sell you books online. And there's one in particular that I follow that I just love. He has books that are hundreds of years old.
Oh, that's really cool.
Originals. Yeah. And he has a lot of that stuff, like the alchemy, and he's got a lot of the first books from Aleister Wells, like all that's like, it's just, when he opens up the book of magic, the divination, I'm looking at it going, holy cow, how do you protect that store? That's one hell of an insurance claim there.
Well, I think most people have no clue what we're talking about. Like, I think not the people that are listening necessarily, but most people in the world are so far removed from that at this point that they either have no idea about it or don't care.
That's where they want them, though.
That's exactly where
hundreds of years of indoctrination. Why would you question anything?
Right. People were mad at the DaVinci Code. Catholics were furious.
Yeah.
When the DaVinci Code came out, I had people I saw. John and I went to see it down in South Florida when it came out, and we were riveted. And there were a couple people that walked out because they realized what it was about. Like halfway through, they're like, "What are they saying here?" Like Jesus and Mary Magdalene. What? They were so offended they walked out.
Do you think they're offended because I believe with the conditioning, you don't want to think of, priests aren't supposed to be married. You don't want to think of, Jesus, the Lord, the Savior, as being married. But why do people have such a hard time, do you think, accepting the fact that, no, in a sign of the times, he would have to be married? People would think there was something wrong with him.
It's cognitive dissonance. And again, it goes to the psychology of people. People don't want, it's too uncomfortable for them they'd have to relearn everything, and so you're indoctrinated. I was born Roman Catholic. I went to catechism. I went to Sunday school.
Yeah, all three of us.
You didn't question anything. I did. You're open-minded. Because I'm like, wait, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't go over well.
No, it didn't.
That goes over well with the nuns. You have another thing coming. No. You got a ruler over your knuckles is what you got.
No, I challenged the priest.
Yeah, pretty much.
I challenged the priest in my life because he was in my life for a long time. Communion, confirmation, marriage. My mother's funeral, like he was in my life for a long time. And just recently saw him at a cousin's funeral. And I actually got up during confirmation preparation and asked him about exorcisms and demons. And he's like, Amelia, sit down. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. There's certain, and even though they have the Catholic Church, the Vatican has its own exorcists. I mean, of course there are things that I don't know, like, sometimes I wonder, is it the kind of thing where if there's a narrative, it's a 2,000-year-old narrative. There's a book that people worship as fact, as literally the Bible. And as that's it. That's the word. That's the spoken word of God, right? That is, Jesus was a savior. Jesus was a da-da-da.
Yeah.
And what that does, though, it denies all of us the truth about not only the truth, but the knowledge that comes with that truth, the power that comes with that truth. They don't want us to have power.
No.
And it's a power that comes from inside. I feel like the Jesus bloodline, not so much the blood type, but the DNA has power associated with it. There's power within that DNA.
That energy.
So if there is a bloodline, they don't want that. They don't, they want to either control that bloodline or get rid of the entire bloodline. That's my That's what I would think based on.
It's kind of the premise of the film and the book, right?
Right. But actions speak louder than words. Look what the church has done in its history. How many people the church has killed? How many women it burned at the stake? Women altogether, they hated.
Yeah, witches.
Right. So a woman, any woman who said no, or I don't want to do that, or I'm not obeying, was literally burned at the stake as a witch.
Well, that's why St. Peter was given the basilica.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that, but yeah, I mean, I just think that it was always about, and how many right? They wiped out the Cathars. You know, the Spanish Inquisition. That thing.
The Cathars. But you know what's interesting, if you get back into the time of the Cathars, you know, along with the Essenes and the Gnostics, you know, they worship Moloch. And
that's a problem.
Well, not unless you know exactly what Moloch was. He was a star god.
I know. So, it's a tough one. Yeah.
Well,
for me, I'm saying
no, it's pretty much well known that the church, you know, I always say bastardized, maybe it's a strong word, but they really did a lot of reversals, right? So when you do that and you think about it today, the church didn't want anybody else, you know, they're like, no, you can't go. I mean, they spent 1700 years just torturing people who went against the narrative. But you go to the Vatican today, there's a statue of Moloch right as you walk in. It's like right there. So is it one of those things where, you know, do as we say, not as we do?
Yeah. And it's also, it's not what you think it is, because they created, so for the church, it's like, okay, we got to control people. How do you control people? You scare the heck out of them. Hell, the devil, Beelzebub, whatever, Mephistopheles, whatever you want to call them. All right. And it's like the evil, right? That evil spirits, the devil incarnate. So people are terrified that if they don't act a certain way in life, they're going straight to hell.
The conditioning.
It's conditioning. So they don't want to, again, it's cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
If I'm raised that way, and most of us are indoctrinated, there's very few of us that are lucky enough not to have been indoctrinated at all. And the ones that were indoctrinated, like, and were able to, because they're free thinkers, they were able to not get out of that indoctrination. There's not that many of people like that. So, you know, we're here talking about it, but most people don't want to talk about it. But to me, it's a better world because Jesus' ministry is still the same. What was he teaching? He was teaching about love, right? He was teaching about love and light. He was, love thy neighbor. It's so simple what he was teaching. And it's about being closer to source, right? And Jesus said, we're all God. We're all God. And then what did the church do? The church said, Jesus is God. And in order to get to him, you got to go through us. So again, it was all about this. But here's the interesting part is what happens after that, because then it's like, why all the Knights Templar Priory so secret, right? You have the church killing entire populations.
Well, maybe that's why.
For control, and because there's a secret they want to come out, right? And the Knights Templar, what'd they do to the Knights Templar? They did Friday the 13th. They go after every one of them. They burned several at the stake. They were able to escape a lot of them, and
that was
some
the
stuff
Pope
with them.
Yeah.
But why is all this happening? What is so important about this knowledge? Because it empowers us. The knowledge that the Knights Templar had empowers us. The church doesn't want to empower us. They want to be the power. And I think that's what it all comes down to. But what do we miss out of that? What have we missed? We've missed that knowledge of understanding of the universe. And it literally is a universal knowledge of, and that's where the ET thing might come into play as well, because who was Thoth? Who were the Atlanteans? Where did they get their knowledge from? Was there interbreeding? Was the Anunnaki real? Were there other ET races that came down here thousands of years ago and messed with our DNA? So are we all star seeds? Are we all star beings? Which is why we're so drawn to the stars. So for us, it's natural to have this universal knowledge. It's not just earthly knowledge. It's about source. It's about energy. It's vibration and energy, right? And how you can literally manipulate that in a good way on, to do things on earth. And what did Jesus, the things that Jesus was doing, and other people that were initiates of the ancient mystery schools. So all that now, all that knowledge goes away. It's kept secret, right? And it's suppressed, and it has not helped mankind. You may say we're modern man,
right?
But in a lot of ways, weren't the Egyptians way more spiritual and smarter than we were in so many ways?
Well, if you think about, if that's where a lot of the mystery schools stemmed from, I believe that a lot stemmed from there. And I believed a lot stemmed from, in the Middle East as well. Right?
Weren't the pyramids there first, Michelle? Before him?
There are hundreds of pyramids like throughout Egypt and the world, really.
Yeah. But weren't the pyramids of Egypt there before Jesus? Or did it come after? Okay.
For sure. Oh, yeah. No, for sure. Before we continue on, John is in the house.
Oh, yay.
Really?
Bam. Hello.
Hi,
John.
You made it.
Hello.
Hi.
I was on my way out the door and on the way to a cafe to work when I got Jack's text. So I got to turn around and run back.
Thank you.
We're talking about our favorite topic, John, the DaVinci Code and the Holy Bloodline.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
Holy Bloodline. There's so much with that. Have you guys have you been through any areas of the south of France or Rosslyn Chapel or anything like that?
I have been to Rosslyn last summer.
Yeah.
And John as well earlier than that.
And
but that was an amazing experience.
You were both allowed to go in, Jack?
To Rosslyn?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were allowed. We went in, and then we went downstairs to that.
I wasn't able to do that. You were able to do that.
Yeah, and then that was my disappointing moment because I was so amped up. So I'm here, like I'm telling my son the whole time. He's 20 years old.
For it.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, we are going to find the sarcophagus of Mary Magdalene, and I'm going to get on my knees and pray and cry. And I'm not a religious person, but this is going to be a cathartic experience. Yeah. I'm all ready to see this beautiful sarcophagus.
If only
Mary Magdalene herself. So we walk down there and there's a door that's a little bit open. It's ajar. I'm like, here it is, Nathaniel, get ready, buddy. And I open the door and there's a vacuum cleaner in there. There was a storage closet.
Oh my gosh.
And I was, of course, I wishful thinking that there would be that right. Obviously, it's not going to be right there, but it's just a story I tell because I'm like, great. I was hoping to find Mary Magdalene, and I found a Hoover instead.
Yeah, they wouldn't leave, even if they had her. They wouldn't leave her out there.
Yeah, no, I mean, without question, right? If she's underground somewhere, or she's in the south of France, she's definitely not in that closet. So
I love the passion and the joy that you had to. That is really sweet.
It was very funny moment, and took a picture of it actually. But no, Roslyn's special place. And here's the thing: everything's coded. Everything's like this big mystery. And it's like when you look at what you're looking at, and you're realizing that you're seeing, it's not what you think you're seeing, and you have to have so much different kinds of knowledge bases to understand what they were trying to tell. And it's a beautiful. It's one of the coolest places I've ever been in my life.
It's got a piece of every religion, right?
It's unbelievable. Yeah, every religion. And which begs the question, what were they trying to say? What were they saying? And obviously built by a Knights Templar. We know that much.
Yeah.
Well, the Sinclairs were. They were Templars, and they had been
part
to
of the bloodline too, right, Michelle?
Well, they are, because the head Sinclair, which is a Duke of Normandy, comes from the Viking Rollo of Normandy, and Rosslyn, where Rollo is actually, I say buried, he's in a sarcophagus in a church in Normandy, and they're replicas of one another. Rosslyn is a replica of where Rollo is, and so was the Temple of Solomon. Just saying.
That's a beautiful tribute.
It's incredible.
So
yeah,
it is incredible. It makes you wonder what, why, I mean, what was it about all of us? You go back to the Temple of Solomon. Why is everything modeled after that? Because you get into a lot of symbolism and stuff like that when you get into stuff with Solomon.
Mm-hmm.
But let's put the symbolism aside, then you're getting into, the Ark of the Covenant. Or from what it appears to be surfacing now, one Ark of the Covenant. Right? Solomon,
And
Queen
King
of Sheba,
Solomon
they have a son. It goes to Ethiopia. That would make sense.
And if correct me if I'm wrong, but King Solomon himself, one of the modern mystery schools, is based on the teachings of King Solomon, and that ancient mystery school is the school of King Solomon.
That's
and
right.
he was
That's
one of the wisest kings ever to live.
That's right.
Well, where did he get all of this wisdom and knowledge from? And then what was in that temple?
It's the pieces of the puzzle we're missing.
If I had to go back in time, well, I'd probably go to the cross. I mean, there's different places you'd want to be to see what really happened, right? So you can go to the crucifixion, you can go back and see, well, were Mary and Jesus actually, courting each other? You can find that out if you went back. But one of the things, I'd love to be one of the Knights Templar walking in the Temple of Solomon once we took over Jerusalem, and then going down there and being one of the first ones to find whatever they found. Whoa.
Well, I knowledge scrolls. I mean,
family trees.
They are
with family trees on them.
Bloodlines.
They're believed. They're believed to have everything. They're the keepers of lost knowledge, holy relics. That's what the Sinclairs do. So
I love it.
We had Mark Sean Williamson was on our show a few times, and he's a Mason. He studied quite a bit with Dr. Andrew Sinclair, and they wrote a book together. He was a keeper of all of those papers and all of that research upon Mr. Sinclair's death, and he has it all. And I flat out asked him, one of the questions that I said before we signed off is, what is under Rosslyn Chapel? It's a question everybody wants to freaking know.
And nobody wants to answer.
And he smiled and he said, Templars, of course. Okay. So I thought that was pretty special, but because at one time there used to be tunnels, and and he was like, he's their stonemason. He does a lot of stuff. He's restoring the ruins of the castle, and he had an inn, and there's a lot of information there. And some people will tell you there's a portal at Rosslyn Chapel. Well, isn't that interesting? Because if you get back into the Temple of Solomon, a lot of this in the ancient mystery schools, a lot of it was about being able to traverse between dimensions.
And Rosslyn means rose line, right?
Exactly.
So do you think, okay, so you have, and also too, what's in Rennes-le Chateau? What's under there? What's in those graves that they were digging up? And what was what's in the Magdalene Tower, or whatever it's called? And Michelle, this is something you can speak to directly, but I heard that and that's a place that we're definitely going, and that's a bucket list thing, but for this project, whatever we ever wind up doing, we're going to the south of France, and we're going to do extensive research there. But I heard it's almost like the energy and the vibration there is different. It's like magic.
It is. It really feels that way about the majority of the Languedoc area. There seems to be something about this place. UFOs are seen pretty regularly over there. You can get into so many different power spots. There are power spots everywhere. Rennes-le Chateau is one of them, but there are others, like Mount Bougarache, like Monseigneur. Like there's the history there is unbelievable. And if you think about it, let's just go back to the Cathars for a moment. When 20,000 Cathars were killed at Carcassonne, you have to see the holy city of Carcassonne. It is incredible. What kind of a energy release do you think, what kind of an imprint would be left in this time and space with the release of so much loss of life, all of this essence just being released almost simultaneously?
There's a hotel or a historical, I have to look up the name, where you can have dinner on the roof in Carcassonne, and it's just you and your guests, and there's nothing around you.
Carcassonne's got a lot of places.
Ancient, yeah. It was. I saw it on a show, and I was like,
oh, that just gave me the chills.
Just well, it was wasted. It was wasted on the people who got it because they were into themselves, and they
I'm sure, right?
I think they were too young for it.
Yeah,
but sure. I'm watching this with my daughter, going, Savvy, like, look. Yeah. She wants to go to France. She's like, I can't believe they're talking. I'm like, yeah, I know. Look at what they're missing out on. Take that in. Take that in and listen, because I bet you there are stories being told on that energy that you're sitting on and touching, and you're in the middle of. You're missing out.
I would turn my cell phone off.
Place, yeah,
it's so
right. No cell phones. Turn the cell phone off and just.
But you want to go into La Cité. La Cité is it's like the old town of Carcassonne on the mountain, and it's got the cathedral, and it's got the castle, and it's got it's beautiful. Time stands still, that of course, that's what I
think that's
after the Templars were rounded up, King Philip got the castle, the property, and he just restored it. So it's a little bit different, but you can go in and see. It's just fantastic. And you can see effigies they have a big effigy there of a Templar in a sarcophagus there.
Oh, that's so cool.
That's beautiful.
I could send you pictures.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I can
Michelle, is that area known to be haunted? Like ghosts, like hauntings?
Yes. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people who've had experiences there, both with, paranormally, and with, seeing UFOs, and photos have been sent to me. I stayed in a small town called Malve, which is Malve, which was probably about half an hour from Rennes-le-Château. There was a town of 800. And I stayed in what was a building that would have been probably maybe a stable or a place for the help, I guess, because it shared a courtyard with a castle. And we couldn't get into the castle because the townspeople all saved up to buy it. I mean, they restored. It was a family who restored the building I was in, and it goes back to like maybe 1200s. Incredible. Templars probably would have stayed there or close. But the castle, they saved their money. They pulled it together. They bought this castle. It had been sealed up for hundreds of years. When they opened it, they found that they had the largest collection of Renaissance art in all of France. When I was there, they had people from the Louvre there, and they were documenting it, and they were restoring it and drawing it out, sketching it out. I was able to see photos of it while I was there. It's just incredible. That's just an example of the history. But while I was there, things walking around outside the door, and I mean, I'm already waiting for that, So I always stay in old places, and this is one of the things that I really enjoyed. And I could see, because it was a very long building, right? Like it's just like 2 floors and really, really long. So I'm sure they had a lot of people staying in it at one time back the 1200s. But anyway, I could just see somebody walking and pacing back and forth, and then I could hear it. And I'd go over and I'd open the door. It's just like nobody there. Like, yes.
Hello, come on, show yourself.
Yes. But
you want to sit down?
You see it everywhere. Any place you go. Rennes-le-Château has a feel that's. I was doing EVPs in French in the tower.
That's cool.
and I ended up with a very interesting photo, but I didn't see until 2 years later, because I don't always look at my pictures right away. It took me 2 years. I'm busy. And I was just like, what the hell is that?
Who was that?
I know. So, and it was Sonia.
I was going to say, but I knew the story. I was like, can you imagine having a conversation with Sonia?
He wouldn't talk. I spoke in French, and you just had a feel. I knew I was not by myself. Not at all.
These people want you to know the truth. I mean, that if we go into this, if we go to spirit right now and we go into that part of it.
You think so?
Without
Yeah,
question.
absolutely.
I don't know. I have a different opinion of that. I think some do, but I think some of them are still not in the sense that they don't want you to know, but they're still in the energy of hiding things.
Well, they want you to know that what they did is real. Like, so Pierre de Plantard wants us to know that he was not hoaxing that, that the Priory of Sion exists, and that there were Grand Masters, and that list of Grand Masters is accurate. And it makes sense. I mean, Leonardo da Vinci, all these great artists and writers and amazing people throughout history that were Grand Masters, they were all trying to tell us something in their work. And we have to pay attention to that. And no one was, I mean, Leonardo da Vinci literally was the original Renaissance man. I mean, the guy was amazing human being. If he was all human at that, I mean, he was just beyond belief. But I think these people want us to know that there's something to it. And they want us to know that we've lost our power and we need to try to gain it back as individuals and who are connected to source.
I think a lot of it too is that there was much more of a connection to the universal energy then, and a focus on that, and especially with the people who chose to do that. Not to say that the masses were, and we're so far removed from that today.
We're very, very distracted. You're speaking of a time where all they had was, I mean, they built churches, took hundreds of years to build cathedrals. They were building cities, and they were going to church and feeding their families, and they were farmers, and it was a different world. So they would have been more open, especially if they were seeing things like UFOs, which there's records of, and you see that with aliens over the years inside the pyramids, outside, in the great works of art that we're speaking of. There are many signs, and people will dismiss it and say, oh, it's a lip something cloud. Yeah, okay. If it makes you feel better.
Da Vinci was notorious for being able to mirror images.
Symbols,
and he would document in his artwork UFOs. He would, you'd see Mother Mary in the background, you'd see the craft in the top, but he would mirror his images, his paintings. When you opened it, it would look like an extraterrestrial. Like he's got all kinds of that. It's pretty interesting.
I was fortunate enough that in high school I had a nun I was in Italian immersion, so like everything was Italian, written, spoken, read, and she took us to the only time the Leonardo da Vinci, oh my gosh, what's it called? The whole exhibition was in Toronto, and it was the only time it's ever been there. I wish I could go back, because at that age of 15, 16, I didn't appreciate it the way I would appreciate it now, even though I was like in awe of looking at how did he put all of this together? The math, the drawings, the artwork, the missing, the whole story. But now I would love to get a redo of that. With a whole different mind and experience. I think she probably enjoyed it more than us because of her age and her experience and her wisdom, where the rest of us were more like, wow, look at him. He drew this. And, it wasn't the same. But yeah, his stuff is incredible to look at, especially that drawing, that ever popular sketch of the body. And he opens it. I'm holding my hands up like you guys can see me because I'm so used to being on camera.
What is it, Intrusion Man or something like that?
Yeah, and he has, the circles around him.
I have a large drop of that.
Yeah, and when you fold
every now
it
and then
and
I change up the
it,
set. Yeah, it's huge.
It's completely mirror, like Michelle said. That's the whole thing. Whether it goes, from top to bottom or side to side. And that was what stuck with me, was that particular one. I think it sticks with a lot of people, but.
Well, it comes back to the church, hindering, suppressing, conditioning. I think there's a lot of information. I do agree that there are spirits out there. There are beings that want us to know. because suppressing us hinders our growth and our evolution.
Right.
And maybe that was the point all along, was to
Right.
hinder our evolution,
For
dumb
power
us up.
control.
Maybe they were moving too fast.
No, it's again human nature. You know, I think that no one has caused more damage to humanity and humanity's progress than the church. Period. It's not even close. And it's a shame that what went down the way it did 2,000 years ago, and then shortly thereafter. And the way they were able to take that kind of control. So that's something that we all need to be aware of. And I would say to everyone listening tonight, watching, listening, that that's what we're talking about here, that there's that knowledge that's available to all of us. It's in our DNA. And we just have to, you know,
remember,
accept it.
Remember, right. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And take control of our own power, right? And own it, and understand that it's like what Jesus said, we're all God. That's what Jesus was trying to tell us. You know, so we're all God. We're all connected to source. And that's
but then the church tells you, no, we're not all God. That's blasphemous, right?
Right.
No.
So,
and there's
especially when they give you a priest to
day, right? So they smear Pierre de Plantard. He was a con man. He was this, he was that. I'm not saying he was, I didn't know him. I didn't say he was a perfect guy. But there's truth to the Sinclairs. There's truth to the fact that the Priory existed. There's truth to all of that. And so, but what do? They smear campaign. They have all the power and the money. So it's like, oh, he was a con man. And they have people write stories about Pierre Plantard being a con man. And that's the end of the story. And no one after that, because again, they'd rather believe that than believe that what he's saying is true, because then they have to believe that there is a bloodline, and there's a royal bloodline, and there's a Jesus and Mary Magdalene bloodline. And that's what the prior is trying to protect. So most people don't want to deal with that on any level.
No, there's a film that someone put out a couple years ago, and it must have been during the C period. Excuse me, it was called The Messiah, and it's actually about Jesus's life growing up, I think from 8 or something like that, into when he actually meets Mary of Magdalene, and it portrays a whole different story than the Bible. So if you're interested in just looking at it, because I can't remember who wrote it, there might be something to what he's writing and how this came out in cinema. But the story I thought it was really well done for the way they did it. Like, it wasn't religious. It was telling the story of a young man who all of a sudden was Jesus and his path. And the meeting of Mary Magdalene was the way they portrayed it was very, very beautiful and sincere, not that she's a prostitute. They portrayed her differently. They portrayed her as a priest.
The church has even come forward and said, no, she wasn't a prostitute, and
they should take it out of their Bible
in that way. There's a lot of things and I say go back to the Old Testament. Do you know allegedly that the word Satan is mentioned one time, and it's in the book of Enoch that was deliberately left out of the New Testament? Do you know that the word Lucifer doesn't even exist?
Lucifer, it just means light. Luce.
Light bearer. Yeah.
Yeah.
The morning star. So I think if you really dig, you would definitely find things in there that would blow your mind. But you have to get past the conditioning. And this, yes, she was an equal in the mystery school.
Yeah.
Right. And that's right. And it's the part that it's the divine feminine. That's the part the church hates.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier, is she was supposed to be at the Basilica in St. Peter. God, they would never give that to a woman to be a priest. But at what time, they were all women that were preaching and traveling. And do you know why he was crucified upside down? St. Peter? Because he didn't feel worthy of being crucified the way Jesus was.
What, wasn't Peter the one who kind of was part of the problem after Jesus died?
I think they all were.
Mm-hmm. To back up a minute to this Brotherhood of Solomon, I just pull up some of my notes. So, because I wanted to touch on that since you mentioned it. So, the Brotherhood of Solomon, developing technology, and apparently something about it being on an island, but it was about alchemy. And they were asked where the technology came from. Okay. And this comes from a book. And I think I brought this to your attention, which would be Book of the War of the Lord, the Wars of the Lord. And they mentioned in there the Brotherhood of Solomon. And they talked about this technology that came from a light in the sky. And the book was given to them by an extraterrestrial, essentially. And they basically, they took it back because they didn't feel we were ready for it at the time. But it was all part of this mystery school. So you guys really have to dig that up. There's a lot of information there because these are books that are not common. You know how people burn books after a while? They just take things away, but you can still find.
So easy. It was so easy back then to control. And you would think that in today's information age and access to information, that people would be curious to dig deeper, or at least to find answers that are there and worthy of researching. But we're more concerned with what's next than what's behind us, and that's unfortunate because what's behind us has shaped what it is today. And that becomes the problem. The problem is that our future is been shaped by the past, and we have the power to reclaim that if we choose. And unfortunately, the people who do the most work in these different disciplines are the ones who are criticized and demonized and just basically thrown out because of their connection to what is most likely reality and truth.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
That's why if somebody's criticizing you, it's usually because you're on the right path.
Yeah.
And they're afraid.
I think fear is the you say it perfectly. They're afraid. The fear. People fear change. It's easier to have a safety net, and when you're conditioned from the time that you're a child, you want to think that this is for the good, your own good. Your parents were educated the same way or conditioned, and it just keeps going back, up and up. I mean, hundreds of years.
Having traveled the way that I have too over the last several years and experiencing Catholicism in its different forms and different, so seeing it, European Catholicism is different from the visualization of it, the presentation of it to the masses is different from in the Americas. And then when you get down into Central and South America, it's Jesus is scary, and it's all intended to scare people. The imagery, the portrayal of Jesus is one that is frightening. It's absolutely
frightening.
Isn't
that interesting?
I didn't know that.
It's the crown of thorns and the blood and the facial expressions and the gauntness and the color of Jesus in these different scenarios. It's kids being exposed to that, when they're very young, there's a sense of fear. There's a sense of fear that's instilled with them. And I've had conversations with people who grew up in that space and they're like, we can't leave the house without, crossing ourselves. And, there's a cross in every room of our house. There's one over every door. And mothers will, they said that it's ingrained in us as we're children going out to school that our mothers won't let us go until they've blessed us before we go out the door. So we're very, very young, and this is becomes part of our DNA because it's such a part of the culture that we grew up in. So younger generations are moving away from it, but they're still it's a fallback position. They're like, well, in case things go sideways, I always have Christianity. I always have God and Jesus to fall back on, just in case, my foray into the realities and challenging the norm go bad. I can always fall back on that, which is the control. It's sad. I find it extremely sad that people have embraced religion so strongly that it affects how they process everything. It is there's no thought required because everybody's doing the thinking for you. You just got to follow.
I think the truth is more fascinating than the fiction.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I mean, think about it. Magic mystery schools. And I mean, he would have been educated. His uncle, Joseph of Arimathea, was like wealthy. He traveled with him as a young man, as a child, to all of these incredible places. And Joseph traveled everywhere. Jesus was exposed to a lot of knowledge and education. Would it be so hard to grasp that he learned all of this in his youth, and he comes back and he's just got even more information and more knowledge, and he's versed in so much. It's no wonder it was fascinating to listen to him.
Mhm.
But it's like they almost skip over that part.
I find that more interesting. What happened during those years of discovery versus what happened in the last few years of his life. I'm more curious about the journey. What was the journey like? And his portrayal is one that has been, fabricated, by the church years later for the purposes of going from a polytheistic society to a monotheistic. There's too many gods. We just need one. We just need one and Mary, and we have a male and a female, and that's it. And
but do you have the right one? If you dig even deeper, you'll find things that will shock you, and you're going to go, okay, wait, what? I thought this was this, or he was this, because we're conditioned to be, to worship Yahweh.
Yeah.
If I tuned you into some of the other research I have, you'd go, what are you talking about? I just don't want to piss a lot of people off. The show knocked off.
You have theologians.
Fascinating stuff.
Theologians, is that how you pronounce it? That study the Bible and the vernacular and bring it to present day, and it gives it a whole other meaning.
Well, there's just, when you find out, academically speaking, this is all stuff you can find. It's not me just saying, oh, hey, this is a thing. You could find information out there that might just show you that maybe we've been taught to worship somebody entirely different than what we think. I'm not talking about Jesus. I'm just talking about, who our God is. Like, there's a lot of information out there that goes back. It goes so far back. And do you believe it 100%? No, you should never believe anything 100%. Research the crap out of it, cross-reference it until you can't find anything to cross-reference it with, and then kind of go, well, that leaves room for more, cross-referencing.
Well, the most amazing thing about religion, all religions, is they're all based on faith. They're not based on truth. They're based on faith. And it's a house of cards. The second you start pulling the cards at the bottom out, everything can collapse. So there's a strong desire to control that foundation. And therefore, if that foundation didn't exist, we would all be exposed to truth, not faith-based understanding.
Right. They don't want people seeking knowledge.
No. If just to add what Michelle was saying about how we possibly might be worshiping something different, here's an example: Dante's Inferno. If you invert it, then they're going up to the sky. If you turn it upside down, they're going down levels of hell. Which one is it?
There's just stuff, honestly, like if you just things that you can go ahead and Google and just, delve a little bit for yourself. Look up who the Hebrews worshipped and who the Jews worshipped and who the Hebrews and the Jews were, where they came from, who the Canaanites and the Phoenicians worship. There's a lot of stuff in there. Like, there's a lot of stuff in there. So when you on the road, for Jesus and Mary Magdalene, you really have to look at some people, some theologians or some researchers will tell you, oh, it's all metaphorical. You're kind of going that way.
I don't think
Hell to
so.
the no,
Yeah.
No, because with every grain of this, there's a truth of this, or there's a fable of this. You just have to connect enough dots where you can say, this is the big picture. But getting to this picture, there was a whole lot more in the background.
That
will
it's a lot of it was copycatting at the time too.
Mm-hmm.
The whole everybody was a prophet. Everybody was a prophet, and then it was like it needs to be controlled. And and when you think about it, it's like I find it interesting when we look at it from a historical perspective. So all of this was happening between 2,000 and 5,000 years ago, that all of this bubbled up. There's been no prophet since then. There, it's like it was the time, it was the era of prophets, and were all the foundational thought. No, those things all existed for thousands of years before that. And it was usually based on the nature and astronomy or astrology and the sky and the stars and the positions, and it was all of everything they did was based on the times of day and season. It wasn't based on religion. So the further back we go, if there is an ability to find the truth in all of that, and to upset the apple cart of belief and faith. To me, Jack and I have had these conversations for decades about the desire to expose the truth. That wouldn't it be nice if, given the choice between fact and fiction, that people leaned into fact more than fiction? But our entire societies are based on fiction and faith, and that's I find that puzzling, that people do not want to unearth the truths and the realities of what was and
we
what
need
could
more
be.
explorers. We need more explorers, right? Hi, Kevin. Past guest. Now that's a guy that knows stuff. Just saying. As well.
Yeah.
Hats off to you, Kevin, for sure. But do you think? Let me ask you this, based on what you just said. I feel I've always been an explorer. I want to learn. I'm a student. I will never stop being a student. I just constantly want to learn things. Do you think? I believe that the dead speak, personally. So, do you think that good mediums can get you these answers? I mean, I know the truth. I've been playing around for 20 years. So I've been put on paths that have taken me in directions to where I am today.
Yeah. There's no question that is a way to get those answers. And like you say, though, it's got to be someone with true ability. And they have to, spirit, if you will, has to want to communicate through them properly. So, and we are lucky enough, John and I, to know someone who's like that, which is why some of this we know to be true, because in a way that you cannot explain away, certain people have come through this particular psychic medium and said things that only like she could never have known. And I'm confirming, because I'm the one who's done the research,
right?
And saying, you know what? Yeah, that makes sense. We talked about Fournier, father, and well, yeah,
right.
And
so why not just channel? Some people look at Jesus as he's a descended master. Some people claim to speak with him all the time. Why not just channel Mary Magdalene? Channel Jesus. Like, why not? Why do you think people have tried? Or do you think people are afraid to? Can't channel Jesus? That's the blasphemous. Like, what? And
really
I'm just posing a question.
To prayers.
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, people claim that they speak to him all the time, right? Through prayer. But I mean, through mediumship, because I look at abilities, they're all gifts. Again, you get the church, certain religions that say, oh my God, no, this is the devil's work. No, No, it's a gift. It's an ability.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
It's something that you've been blessed with, and you should do good with it for others. You
Right.
do good for others. You do good for humanity. You know, I mean, you're going to do what you want to do with it. But if it comes to you, you should do something with it. So why not communicate?
I agree. And that's the way for deniers to dismiss it out of hand. That's the devil's work. Think about what they're saying, the devil's work. I mean, that's a total indoctrinated statement.
Well, because you're not supposed to seek out the divine light. It's supposed to seek you. That comes exactly from the upbringing.
Yeah, exactly. So God forbid you go out and try to find stuff out on your own.
Yeah, but yet they encourage you to reach him through prayer. Same thing.
Right.
It's just a matter of who's listening.
Controlled environment.
Well, right.
Through prayer?
Where are you praying? Like for them,
how you pray, you've been taught how to do it. It's not how personal is it? You're kneeling down.
I'll stay out of that one.
Well, you learn. You learn.
You don't have to pray their prayers. I'm just saying in the state of prayer.
But I'm thinking when you're born into a Christian Roman Catholic environment, everything is structured. You go through these steps. Everything is a step, and until you're old enough to have your own ability to discern information, but up until you're in your teens, you're doing everything based on the way they told you to do it.
Totally understand you. And then I'll tell you the story of Fatima in Portugal. Prayer on a mountain, vision of Mary. There's quite a few of them that have happened and are hard to dispute because of, like these children that pass away and come back from life all around the world have described Jesus. And one has been an artist since she had her NDE and came back, and they have all drawn him the same way. So there's so many questions. You have to look at all the sides of it.
Playing devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Okay. We've had people on the show, Barry Fitzgerald and Brian Allen, who have researched a lot of this stuff, and they believe that some of the Marian sightings, some, and maybe not all, but you have those mimics as well, right?
Yeah.
Who go out there to they'll mimic some of these sightings just to, to draw in the faithful, so to speak.
Keep the dream alive.
Right. So I think it truly is a careful. You have to be careful with everything. There are powers out there that want to manipulate you. There are things out there that are, that want to keep you from knowledge and having these incredible experiences. And there are things that that are genuine. I always go back to the case of Annalise Michel, the show Emily Rose. And she had a Marian experience just before she finally took her last breath, right?
She also had a full stigmata.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just think that there's a lot of things out there that when it comes to this whole religion itself, I think spirituality is one thing and religion is something entirely different.
Yeah, absolutely. When I said that, and I'm telling you,
organized, it becomes.
That's what I'm trying to explain. That there are people who are, indoctrinated that do have these kind of experiences. Never dismiss it without the research, because that one for Fatima, the reason why it sticks with me is because it happened so long ago. So long ago, where no internet, none of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But was it say, like, we used to talk about this, and we use this as an example. You have three people in a room. They're in the same room, and they see a ghost. Well, the atheist is going to say it was an illusion. It was I just had it didn't exist. All right. It was an illusion. The Catholic is going to say it's not necessarily the devil, but like something to the effect it's evil or whatever. Yeah. And, the Buddhist is going to say something completely different. They all saw the same exact thing, but they're going to describe it completely differently based on what they believe.
I don't think the Buddhists even believe in demons, do they?
Not Buddhists.
No. Reincarnation.
No, it'd be like, yeah. But again, like, it's like, okay, well, did you just hallucinate? Like, certainly the atheist is going to be, well, that was a hallucination, because it can't be a spirit, because I don't believe in spirits.
But that's okay.
No, I'm saying it's okay, but with the interpretation, you got to be careful with interpretation.
That I understand. I just try to be a little bit more open about it, because it just, if that one particular case just stays with me, because I do believe she existed, and I do believe that she appears. I don't believe in the sense of the Catholic Church organization. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not promoting them. I'm not pushing them.
Well, there's the saying that goes, I believe in God, but not the fan club.
That would be me. That would absolutely be me. Yeah. I mean, I was, asked to leave more than one church. It's not like I've been questioning since I was a child.
Well, the problem with religions and the idea of religion and organized religion is that it separates all of us here.
Of course.
Oh, yeah, there's tons of
bottom line
religions.
Is that there's one truth. Right. There's one truth. There's not 8 truths.
One spirituality.
There is, and that's exactly, and that's the idea that we're all tied together through this source, if you will. You can call it God, you can call it whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
because different religions are going to call this a different thing, but it's source. It's light. It's the light. It's the source of power, right? It's the source of where we get our inner power from. So, and we're all connected to it, all of us, whether you're Buddhist, Jewish, Jews and Palestinians who kill each other. They're not going to ever want to admit this, but they're all connected. They're all the same, all the same. And it's only organized religion that screws with your head so much that it makes you kill each other on this planet. Right. So what you have to remember is that there's one truth, and
one love.
Whatever that truth might be, but it's really source. It's universal laws.
I believe in that, and that's what I meditate to, is universal laws, actually. But I believe in that 1,000,000%, that there is something there. We can't, it's in all of us, and we can't just name it. It is. It just is.
And that ancient knowledge, that kind of ancient knowledge was all about, again, let's boil down the message that Jesus's ministry. What was the message? What were the main messages there? Well, the things he talked about the most, according to, if you read the scriptures, is he talked about love thy neighbor. And he also talked about the ills of money. Those were the 2 things apparently he preached about the most, right? So he was against money. He was against material things. And obviously also it was all about love. So if you take that in its purest form, and take out all organized religion, anything you've ever learned in a catechism class or Hebrew school or wherever, right? Take all that out and just think about that message in its purest form. That's, I think, the important thing to remember is it's about love. Love is universal, and we've been taught to hate and fear, and we should be loving. And if we all did that, these people that have power over us now would have absolutely zero power over us.
Well, that's why it's being protected.
Right. Absolutely.
That's why it's being protected, because then the elite can't be the elite. Right.
It's very sad. And then you sit here, but see, this is a part of it that, Michelle, you and I touched upon this in one of our last conversations, but it's that you got to factor in human nature here. We have souls, right? But we also have 3D bodies with actual brains, right? And this is what makes it complicated: our egos.
It's big.
Our sense of self, our sense of self-awareness. And if it's not our intuition, right, then it's our ego. So our intuition is our higher self. That's our spirit. And the ego is our lower self, because it's based on fear and
low energy.
Because it's absolutely.
Yeah.
So if you think of it that way, human nature is such. Let's go back 2,000 years. Jesus in his ministry dies on the cross. Well, think about what's happening there already. You got the Romans who are, they're just all about power and control. They have slaves in every country they were in. And
including South of France.
Let's crucify this dude. Yeah. They were so cruel that they almost got major enjoyment out of it. Okay.
Well, he had too much power. He was more popular than the Pope.
When the chateau was actually a Roman stronghold. It was all Roman before that.
No. Yeah, they controlled everything. Yeah. And then you have the Jewish high priests who Jesus was also a threat to. Right. So you have this beautiful message of love and love thy neighbor, and human nature comes into play and ruins it. And then human nature comes into play again afterwards and controls it. And it's the ego. And it's like, instead of, why can't everyone just be about love and light? And if the Cathars were, the early Christian sects were all about that. But then it's like, no, it's about power. It's about control. And it's insecurity. Human beings are so insecure, it's ridiculous. And some of the most powerful people in the world today are the most insecure people in the world. Well, and not only that, let's add in not only the normal brain that's messed up, let's throw in mental illness, sociopaths, psychopaths, narcissists.
Well, that's the underlying everything in sociopath, psychopath, all the paths. Actually, the underlying thing is narcissism.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then that's part of the human condition, unfortunately. So what percentage of the human population are narcissists? Like 11%. If it's more than 1%, it's terrifying.
I think it's more than that.
Guess who controls everything? They're all crazy. I learned this doing the JFK book. All those very powerful men who killed JFK, they were all sociopaths, narcissists, psychopaths. They were the worst of the worst. And they didn't care about peace and love. They just wanted power.
But it goes so far back, though. It goes so far back. You know why the Cathars were killed? Because they worshipped. I mean, they didn't believe in what the church was saying, but they didn't believe you should pay the church to worship.
Right.
And they didn't.
Right.
Okay. Technically, the Essenes and like I say, the Essenes and Gnostics, the Cathars, they also worshipped Molech, the star god, as well. So, but they also, they had to believe. They just didn't believe you should have to pay the church to worship. Right. And look what happened. And
they felt they understood the divine feminine as a very important coexisting with male-female energy.
Because Molech had a female counterpart, which was Ishtar, which was like Isis in Egypt, right?
Right. Right. And that's what Jesus learned, right?
That's right.
That's what he learned that. He knew that Mary Magdalene was his Isis. Not that he thought that they were, but I'm saying
I understand his counterpart.
And she was as deserved to, who's going to inherit the reins of this. And, and again, that's where Peter and these other idiots ruined that. But it was,
it was a combination, because she was supposed to go on and continue his teachings, and that's where she was supposed to run the basilica, and Peter got it. A lot of it had to do with her being female, and that the Catholics didn't accept.
It took away from the goddess, right?
Oh, yeah. Peter, if I'm not mistaken, Peter hated Mary Magdalene. And he wanted nothing of her. Like they did not like that. And so
they didn't like sharing Jesus with anyone. If you watch if you read about the story or you watch Messiah, you'll see that as well. None of them were willing to just take her in.
But again,
because it took the attention off of them, and she was the stronger one, and she was the one that understood more, the more educated one.
And again, that's human nature, right? If you take away all of our flaws, and that's, I think, what the bottom line of all this is. is that ancient knowledge, whatever it was, enabled people to balance to the point where they got it. It's just understanding, right? An understanding of the fact that if I let go of the ego and just, if I wake up every day, and this, I tell people this, wake up tomorrow and make up your mind in the morning, have your coffee, and then get up, and whatever you do tomorrow, bring joy to whoever you run into. When you go to Starbucks or wherever you go, kill people with kindness all day long, and see what mark it makes, not only the people that you're communicating with and the people you touch and come into contact with, but also yourself at the end of the day. You're going to be much more positive. You're going to feel good. You're going to feel much better. If you just make that effort to be kind, love thy neighbor, and say, you know what, even if the girl behind the counter has the world's worst attitude, I'm going to kill her with kindness until she smiles at me. I've done that before.
Right.
Have you been to Canada, Chuck?
Well, the United States is a mess, Amelia.
No. It's a mess here too. But I'm saying, like, we're known for killing people with kindness. We apologize when it's our fault.
I love that. Let me tell you, I've often thought of moving to Toronto. If it wasn't so cold.
No, don't move to Toronto right now.
Not Toronto.
I'm going to tell you right now.
It's too expensive up there.
It's expensive all over Canada right now.
I mean, that's impossible.
One of our provinces that pays the least amount of tax is higher tax than California right now, and we'll leave it there.
Terrible.
So
you got to fix.
Yeah, it's really expensive.
And housing prices, come on.
1.2 million for, I think, 17 or 1,800 square foot, but in
that?
US dollars, that's like $10.
I mean, but listen, I mean, think about that. And I think that's the message and all that. Look, there's a lot here, right? We could talk about this for 8 days straight. They say it took God 7 days to create the earth. It would take longer to get through this topic.
It would take years and years. I mean, it has been taking years, right? It has
so much.
Yeah.
And all we're doing here, we're just talking. Like I sometimes I get nervous because I'm not an expert. No one is. Listen, I look at you, Michelle, as an expert on this because you've done the work.
No.
Listen,
I'm a student. I just absorb. I'm like a sponge.
Exactly. So you have your knowledge on this is unbelievable. But again, none of us are saying we were there. I was there when Jesus was crucified, and I can tell you, none of us were there. I say this about JFK assassination. I wasn't there. I wasn't behind the grassy knoll. So I wasn't in the 6th floor of the depository. I don't know who was there.
Yeah, but a good remote viewer can take you back in time and tell you who was there.
And that's why the government was using. The government is totally into remote viewing. Make no mistake about it. That is something they use because it's a very powerful tool, and for them a weapon. But yeah, absolutely, remote viewing is as real as it gets.
In your line of work, you guys, making films and interviewing people, maybe one day you'll meet somebody who's actually an incarnation of the people that you seek.
That would be amazing.
Sure. You never know.
But would you give that information away, or would you hold it to yourself? There's the question.
Good question.
I'm curious because everybody's kept it private. Would you blow it?
Let's say you met Mary Magdalene through reincarnation and you knew about it. What would you do with it?
That is an incredible question, because here's the problem. John and I are dealing with this right now. We've been privy to information that's come from what you say, Michelle, like when we talk about psychic mediums, good ones, whether, remote viewing, psychic mediums, the real deal, and information that you can not so much confirm, but you can validate one way or the other. You can corroborate, if you will, and that there's no other explanation for it. But how do we create something, whether it's a documentary or a book or whatever it is, that people are going to rip to shreds because they didn't experience that?
And ripped DaVinci Code to shreds.
Yeah, well, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
of course.
always going
I
to be
agree with
someone.
Dolly on this.
Yeah,
I
that
think if
person
you
would
ever
not
met her,
inform you.
I
You
don't
wouldn't
think
know.
I don't think she would tell you. Because
Yeah,
I think some things go to the grave because the world is not ready for it.
there are some things we're not supposed to know.
I don't
And
think it'll be
that
in
could be
this
some of
lifetime.
the inner workings of up there.
Mm.
I don't know how you would describe what word you want to use to describe that.
Well,
John, help me out
it's
here.
a
You know what I'm
universal
talking
No,
about?
we continue to any conversation that we have about any of this is through the interpretation of the human form, the human
Yes.
process, the human mind. So
Right.
we're using the only tools that we have available. We
Right.
don't have the cosmic awareness. We don't
Right.
have all the elements in our favor to discern this in a way where it makes sense. And I think there is, dripping of information that comes to help advance that.
Mhm.
But imagine if this information was all readily available. What would be the purpose of living? What would be the existence, the reason for existing?
Oh.
Just for everything to be good and happy? There would be no yin yang. There would be no
Oh,
opposite.
kumbaya, yeah.
Yeah, it would be all positive.
I don't
How
know.
could we
There's
exist?
so much to learn, though, John. Can you imagine just for a moment if the Library of Alexandria was never burned down,
Oh
all
my
those
God.
scrolls were in a museum?
Heartbreaking.
Do you know that there's an ancient library in Tibet? Do you know that there's an ancient library in Romania and in other different parts of the world? Can you imagine what's in those libraries? Ancient libraries that have been discovered. Well, Tibet's had, they've known about theirs forever, but one in Romania. This has just surfaced, I think, sometime in the 80s. So, how many more are hidden from us?
And I'm with you on that one. How many don't we know about? Just like I came across that man on social media selling these books. These books were collected over generations on his father-in-law's side, hundreds of years. They weren't just something he collected. He's doing this for his father-in-law who passed away. It's him and his wife now. And it's gone, I don't know how many generations. There's a reason why Mary of Magdalene was hidden. And a lot might have to do with DNA, not to be able to prove that bloodline, but whatever it is, I honestly don't feel that the Knights Templar or whoever you connect with on the other side is going to tell you where she is. I really don't, because this is someone that they've protected, and they know that if it goes out, especially into this world today with all the conflict that's going on, just religiously, all the wars, you think about it.
Power.
What's the first thing they're going to want to do is desecrate her.
Oh, without question. And
that's why it'll
that's
never
why
come
everything
out.
is so cryptic. Everything's always been cryptic,
It
whether
has
it's
to
Leonardo da
be.
Vinci's paintings or communication that you might get from the other side is always going to be cryptic. And what they'll say is, listen, it's true. And then when you try to get details, you're not going to get it. So in other words, it'd be like it's true.
Somebody told me a secret.
They'll confirm, right? Exactly.
Right.
Right. But then if you say, where's Mary Magdalene buried, you're not going to get the answer.
No, I feel like that answer is for a privileged few in that bloodline. I don't feel like it's for everyone. I feel that if you're meant to get it, you'll get that information. Right. But it hasn't come out of yet. And I don't think it'll be in this lifetime. I'm just saying, from someone who, I'm just very passionate about her and the whole story. At least we have people accepting him as a person now, where before other religions didn't even accept Jesus as being Jesus.
As even being at all.
No. and now they see him as he was a prophet. He was a preacher.
What I don't like is some people are either Jesus was the Son of God or Jesus didn't exist. There's got to be a happy medium.
We don't know. And we don't know. And even in the Bible, he says, I am the Son, the God, I am the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I am one, is what they're telling you. So what does that mean? Did he just come down in physical form, this oneness that we all go to? It doesn't mean I mean, he was Jewish and the Jewish people don't accept him. So it's just, organization is not a place for this. It needs to be spiritual. It needs to be factual with history. That's where it needs to be.
It's really, it's a very deep rabbit hole.
It is.
The DaVinci Code, the movie, makes it look so cut and dry, but it's a movie. It goes back so far. I mean, the Nazis, look, I mean, like I said, you look at Richard Stanley and Hamilton White book, and Otto Rahn, who was basically out there, spent, so much time looking for holy relics, the Grail quest. The Grail is what they were looking for, but Hitler was on a quest for holy relics. He went to Rennes-le-Château. Otto Rahn was looking for this stuff. They knew something was there. They were.
And why? All they cared about is power. So why would they want these relics?
Right. That's true.
Scary to think.
Well, in magic, we believe that the power comes from the wand, from our body directed through the wand. It is used as an instrument. It could be that some of these relics are used for rituals and contain, can be the key to opening another dimension or opening a portal to something. We don't really know.
But remember one thing, there are things that are documented. Remember the story I told you. Again, if you listen to Mark Ollie's interview, he'll fill you in on quite a bit of stuff. But there were papers which he got a copy of that the Vatican had, because whenever somebody was crucified, in this case, Pontius Pilate had to send a document out to the Pope to say this man was crucified for a reason. Now, his wife begged him, do not kill this man. It is a bad idea. She went completely Christian, said, do not kill this man. So what happened is they crucified him. Documents went to the Pope, and the Pope removed Pontius Pilate because figured, you started something now. Even they knew at this point. Whether he was an ascended master, whether he was just a master of mystery schools, son of God, they knew, and Rome knew that they opened up a can of worms with that one.
Yeah. Right?
But that is something that is documented.
Yeah, I mean, I believe Jesus definitely existed. I'm just saying there are people that are to go one or the other. It's extreme.
And I think that's based on like what you're making your point of. That's a religious view, not necessarily a personal view. It's something that you're raised with. If you're raised Jewish, you don't believe.
No. Back
then, now it's different. They believe, Ben Shapiro has said it over and over again. Yes, he existed, but he was a prophet and he was a philosopher, a preacher. He wasn't the son of God. And that's fine. Nobody can prove it.
But what is in the documents that you don't have access to? What are in the private collections? What books, what knowledge is in private collections of, let's say, the elite, who have all the magic mystery school stuff, or let's say the older families of Europe? What are in their libraries? What's out there that we will never see?
I want to get
shut all of this down and say, yep, here it is.
Right. What's under the Vatican? What do they have?
That's what I want to know. But that's like 54 miles deep.
Yeah.
Imagine how many shelves things are in there. The wealth.
Let's get into ancient civilizations. Let's get into locations that are hidden because of time, like in the jungles, under the sand, under the water. I think information will continue to surface because it's surfacing now. We have the technology. We've got LiDAR. We're finding, the lost city of gold. They found it. Like, there it is. They found this thing. We are finding pyramids through satellite archaeology. We are finding underwater cities.
Yes.
Oceans, water is receding, or we are, we just found one, some lake here in Canada I'm researching it because I'll talk about it tomorrow night, where they just found these incredible glyphs in the water, and you can see it from above. You're thinking, what the hell
what
was
is
all
that?
of this?
How many churches they're finding underground? Dolly, I meant 54 miles long, not deep.
Pre-Ice Age. I think, I don't know. I think we're going to start finding a lot, and maybe that's where you need to start looking.
Do you
I'll send you stuff.
There's anything on Oak Island, just to throw it out there?
There could be some treasure there. I think the Knights Templar definitely made their way here.
Yeah.
I don't think Mary Magdalene's there, but I think that they had some maybe a little treasure. I'm guessing, but objectively speaking,
right.
There's something there. I mean, they did find stuff, and they found coins, and that goes back to that. So yeah.
That just proves that someone landed there. It didn't happen.
Right.
I think that they were there. I believe that they were there. I believe they were all over North America, and we are yet to learn so much more about it.
It's funny. When I was researching for a show going back about, I don't know, 2-3 years ago, I came across an article on where King David was buried. And it was believed that he was underwater somewhere. And I thought, that's interesting. And I think it may have been somewhere in an ocean, like somebody, I think, maybe tried to move him. Then you have those who don't believe he ever existed at all. So it's interesting. You see what I'm saying? You think you're onto something, and then you go.
Yeah, it's access to knowledge.
There were massive earthquakes and volcanoes that destroyed entire civilizations. They're either buried under sea or they're under whatever. How much of lava.
Absolutely. They wouldn't have been able to determine depth or the size of the land masses under them that they were putting these massive stone buildings on. Of course.
But you know what's very interesting is how the church built their churches over top in some areas of power spots and ancient goddess and god temples.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The whole idea of ley lines and that, and there's an energy associated with that.
Right. Right.
And the sun and the moon, how it sets and I know Pisa was done that way.
So where do you think you guys, I mean, you're obviously exploring this, which tells me something exciting is attached to that. So can you share with us what you're hoping to do or what you're toying with?
Well, part of it, that conversation we had with you, Michelle, was an exploratory kind of conversation to figure out. And I remember asking you, like, where do you go with this? What's the takeaway? And you're like, there's not one takeaway. But if you,
how much time do you have?
Exactly. But it's trying to figure out not only, listen, we could do certain things and tell a great story, and it could be very compelling, and we can focus on one area of it, etc. And then there's the idea of finding that thing that no one else has, right? The idea that there's something that we found or we're going to find, have access to that no one else has. And that's when you're going to see that on TV. Because that, as far as TV shows go, we were told just a couple of days ago by someone who's does Expedition X, he's done a ton of stuff. And he's like, these days, 5 years ago, you could have done just about anything if it was a good idea and you knew the right people. But now they want that thing. So if you're going to do a UFO thing on TV, you better have a crashed UFO, an alien body, or tape recordings that no one has, photos that no one has ever seen before. And that applies to everything. So if you're going to do something on the Knights Templar, and I'm like, well, if I had the Holy Grail, I wouldn't need to do a show. Isn't it about the journey? It's about the journey.
Would you even want to? Right. It is about the journey. But you're going to come across information at some point where you guys might say, oh, we just can't put this out.
Oh, Yeah, I agree with that.
Due diligence, right? Like you might come across something and you might say,
well, part of it too, with the way TV and you know this, Michelle, their goal is to sell the concept first. So you need something really sexy, that one thing that they go like, oh yeah, we can do that. And then you have the ability to mold it into the ongoing component, and it can go in a lot of different directions. So I think what we're being told right now is the pitch is all about that shiny metal object that no one's seen before. So the pitch has to be that. We also talked about it in the concept of you never really have to show the shiny metal object. You just have to say that you have it. And as long as you do it in the right way, you create, there's TV shows where it's all about the hunt and they never find anything, but yet people are riveted. They watch them all the time.
Yeah.
That's why sometimes it's a good old fashioned documentary that you have complete creative control over.
Well, that's what we like.
Tell the story.
That's why we did those documentaries the way we did. We didn't do TV. They were one-off documentaries. They were filmed.
Yeah. It's the best way to tell your story and your journey. Tell the story of whatever it is that you're researching and the journey without interference.
Well, we were told, I had suggested doing it. We were on the phone with someone. I can't mention their name, but we were talking about this. And I said, we need to do this. And it related to Rennes Le Chateau. And the response was, if you try to do that, you will be dead in a week. Maybe that's it. That's the show.
Avoiding death.
But then again, do we want to do that?
But you survived JFK.
Dead in a week.
I know, but you survived JFK. You can survive this.
Yeah,
JFK is really touchy.
That's true. But with JFK, it was a compelling. I found out a lot of really great information. It was great.
The storytelling is what. Yeah, it's the story.
Yeah, but I didn't.
Oh, it's incredible.
I wasn't a whistleblower, right? Those are the people that have to really be concerned. Like if I was in the CIA and I came out and I had a piece of information, that's when you have to worry about getting killed pretty quickly. But I think if you're an author or you're somehow a communicator or a filmmaker, as long as you like Oliver Stone, he just threw everything out there. Right. And it's not like he had the smoking gun, but at all. But he said, well, these are the possible scenarios.
He made a great film, though.
One of the best films ever, in my opinion.
Yeah. And Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ was phenomenal.
I never, I did see that.
But I could only get Amelia, to a certain part. I cried too much.
But here's the problem with that. To me, the problem with that film is he came at it from his.
Well, he's Roman Catholic. Yeah.
And very, very religious Roman Catholic.
He is. He's part of the Hollow app. Yeah.
Right. So that whole thing was about, it wasn't very.
No. But he's also an advocate for child sex trafficking. He was the director and the money behind The Sound of Freedom. Exposing all of that. You should watch that. They expose everybody.
And we've been told, because I said we need to do something, John, on Hollywood and like what's going on with not sex trafficking, but this, like pedophilia in Hollywood. And we were also told you'd be dead in a week.
They're doing that. They're doing that right now. And Caviezel. Look it up. I know what the things are coming out, but like, no, I mean, they've been working on that story.
If you upset the hornet's nest, you are going to get stung. I mean, it's just the way it is. And that's
not everything. It comes back to not everything. The story is not always meant to be told or told certain ways, or
Yeah, even if you get a story, even with Epstein, there's been so many things thrown about. It doesn't mean you're ever going to get the whole story, because you have to remember, whoever these people are that are considered the big guy, there's someone bigger over them controlling this. And it's not always something, I've backed out of cases because of how far up they went.
Yeah, we had to do the same thing with the UFO stuff. I mean, you just, you do something and then you're going to be told when not to go further. Mm-hmm. You will get that message when you're doing something that is going to really upset the apple cart, you will, like, if you try to expose, you know, the pharmaceuticals industry, you're dead.
There's a documentary on that as well. The people who created OxyContin. There's a documentary all about them.
These are really big families high up, and they all stem from some of the original 7 elite families, which make the Rothschilds and a lot of other people, like even the royals, look like little puppets. There's some really, really big things up there. So how far up do you want to go? You can go all the way to the top. And give you the names.
Yeah, you might not even be as lucky as Snowden living in Russia.
Just, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. But you know, we are coming up to the top of the hour. So how can everybody find you guys? What do you have coming up? That sort of thing. Fun.
John, you want to take that?
Yeah, we're j3films.com is where our previous 3 films sit. We're beginning to have conversations about a couple of different things: scripted projects, unscripted projects for television, as well as new documentary film. So we're kind of putting our fingers in each one of those pies to see which one pulls out a plum.
I love that.
and see what happens there. But I think we will always be interested in truth and discovering the truth and presenting it in a way that allows people to formulate their own opinions. We've never been ones to, you know, stand on a soapbox and project a story as being the absolute truth, because we don't know. We don't know. But we just think it's important for people to formulate their own opinions versus, you know, just listen to what's been dictated to them in the past. So we'll continue to kind of do that work, because
it's nice and
I think
subtle.
It's important.
Good for you.
Nice,
create the conversation.
Yeah, that's really our goal has been, and we've avoided, you know, being stung by the hornet, because we have only shared information that is already out there. We've just kind of aggregated it in a way, in a compelling story that has people thinking, well, I've never thought of this before. That's really what our ultimate goal is to get people to understand something, or at least seek to understand something that they've never given much thought to.
Excellent.
Awesome. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I like to thank you guys for joining us this evening. It was an interesting conversation, and I love it. A sharing of ideas, a sharing of, you know, theories, and I love the whole exploration of the DaVinci Code and the Holy Bloodline, because I really feel that is where your journey pretty much will be. You will be explorers on this journey, and you're going to uncover all kinds of things. I'll send you stuff as well. It's just true. I will.
We appreciate that, Michelle.
It's in the right hands.
Yeah, we want to talk. We want to talk to you about the shiny metal object too. So,
which one?
Which one?
We just need one.
I like shiny objects. I'm like a crow or a raven. I like shiny things. But I will be in touch, and I will send you guys some stuff as well to just take you off in just a tiny little bit of a different direction. And then by the time we talk again, you're going to be kind of like, I did not see that coming. But it'll be fun, I promise.
Thank you for the conversation tonight and your patience. I have a million questions, and I've learned a lot tonight as well. I think it's going to be an incredible documentary. It's in the right hands.
Thank you so much.
You guys will have to check out Kevin's show.
And we thank you so much for having us on.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And I will be in touch.
Okay.
All right.
Good night, guys.
So
Bye.
Bye. And good morning, John.
Time to go to work.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So we have come to the end of another fantastic segment on the Outer Realm. Big thank you to our special guests. And what a conversation. I think it just sort of leaves us wanting a little bit more, and try to bear in mind, always keep an open mind, because you never know. They're always coming out with things. What may not be in the news today may be in the news tomorrow. And you might say, hey, we've discovered this, or hey, we found evidence of this, or possible lead to this. Always keep an open mind. So with that being said, tomorrow night, of course, we have open mic, and we're going to be discussing what's new in the world of high strangeness, which can include anything out of the norm. I love it. I just love delving into fun stuff because we always have such a great time on our open mics. So big thank you to everybody in the chat room. You guys always make it that much more interesting. We love having you. And big thank you to our sponsors, Folgers Coffee, to Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon, Justin Snicker, to Steve McGinnis. And you have been watching us live tonight on United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM. Watch for the archive coming up on Roku. For those of you guys who had the ability tonight to watch us on Roku, you will find the archive there probably hopefully within the week. Depends if we can get the Grand Poobah to sit still long enough to get it up there. But anyway, have a great night, guys, and we shall see you tomorrow night. Good night.